Is there a kind of predictable plot? Yes. But do I love it anyway? Yes. Hi, are we back? No, we're not back. It's unstable. Like my future. And my honest review is that it's 2 stars. Hey everyone, it's Bethany from Beth and Books and welcome back to this channel. Today I am coming at you with a reading wrap up. I believe it's episode 3. Shout out to Graveyard Girl. Today I am coming at you with my 10 most recent reads. I'm coming at you from the bedroom because self-isolation is a thing, and where my bookshelves are happens to be the same room where my boyfriend is gaming and my brother is on his computer. So tappy tappy is in the background. So we're in the bedroom. We're just gonna deal with it. But yes, 10 books I've recently read. I didn't spin the wheel for these books. When I heard that lockdown was going to be coming into effect the next day, I just went to the library, so that was my priority. I didn't even think about food. I went for the books, so I just picked a random pile. I didn't pre-film any of it, just grabbed what seemed interesting to me, and that's how I landed with the pile that you'll have seen over on my Instagram stories. Before I get into this, quick disclaimer: if you like your book, I am happy for you, even if I dislike the book. Truly, from the deepest, darkest depths of my heart, if you loved a book, that's all I could wish upon anyone. So with that being said, if my opinions differ to yours, please respect them. Let's launch into the most talked about book in a while. Crescent City, technically called A House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This book I am going to give 5 stars. Now, is it a typical Sarah J. Maas fantasy with hot boys? Yes. Is it a typical Sarah J. Maas fantasy with all the like fairy, demon, underworld kind of people? Yes. Is there a kind of predictable plot? Yes. But do I love it anyway? Yes. This book is a long one, and I sat down to start reading it at like 5 o'clock yesterday, and it is no joke 5 o'clock the next day and it's finished. I stayed up till 1 in the morning reading this, and then put it down to sleep, and then woke up 6 hours later, read it again and never put it down. Oh, that's a lie, I put it down to do some of my working at home stuff, but aside from that, this just had me completely gripped. And I think as much as people can absolutely tear apart originality and maybe complain, I was reading the reviews and complained that things were a little bit too similar to other fantasy books out there. But for me, when I pick up a book like this, I'm not expecting something completely original. I just want a world to get completely lost in. And that's what Maas delivered. I can't fault her for that. Like, could I predict some things? Yeah. I mean, there are also a decent amount of twists I didn't see coming. But that's because I don't sit down and think, what could happen next? I'm not that kind of a reader. Any predictions I make are just in the flow of reading. So with that being said, I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the fraught tension between our 2 main characters. I enjoyed seeing the daddy issues being played out. I was swept away when all of the heartache and sorrows were I cried twice. I was emotionally invested, and say what you will of me as a reader who gets emotionally invested in something so kind of standard in its genre, but I loved it and I can't fault it. Sometimes books are just there to be enjoyed, and for me that's what Crescent City was, a book that I thoroughly enjoyed, so it was a well-earned 5 stars. And once I've got my tablet out, the next one I read was Paper Girls Volume 2, and I'm giving this one 3 stars. It is a sci-fi book that's set in 2 different timelines. You've got the past and the future. We follow our paper girls who used to deliver newspapers when they are sucked up in some sort of alien war that they have no idea what's going on. For me, my issue came between how the artwork and the writing was meshed together. The artwork is absolutely beautiful, and I don't have many gripes against the actual storyline itself. What happened for me is that between the artwork and the words, there seemed to be lots of jumps, which made it really hard for me as a reader to connect what was happening and make sense of the plot. However, the art, I mean, you can just tell from this cover page, the art is absolutely amazing, so big points for that. Hi, are we back? No, we're not back. It's unstable, like my future. The third book I read was Serpent Dove by Shelby Mahurin. This is a young adult fantasy romance novel, and it follows our main two characters, Lou, who is a witch, and Reed, who is a witch hunter, and it's totally full of the enemies to lovers trope, as we follow Lou, who is escaping a pretty horrendous family, and Reed, who's figuring out himself and if he truly believes that he should be hunting witches. Essentially what happens is both those characters are forced into a marriage, and the story goes from there. This one was another one of those stories which was full of tropes, but I absolutely adored, so I've given it 5 stars. My favourite part here was watching Lou and Reed and their relationship blossom. I also thought it was really cool how the magic in this world had a consequence. You didn't just have, unlimited magical powers. The witches, when they use their magic, have a smell that linger with them, and that's what often gives them away to the witch hunters. So they've got to be really careful and really sneaky about how they use their magic. And then the last of the books that I read e-version of is 19 by... Can you see her name? Sorry, I know the glare's really bad. By Mackenzie Campbell. And this is her second book. I do have to say that I received this as a free ebook in exchange for a honest review. And my honest review is that it's 2 stars. I feel so bad, but I just have to be honest. Sorry, my pinky cannot hold this tablet. Let's try and not blind you guys with the glare. All right, you can just sit there, 19. 2 stars. This is modern poetry to start with, and it is a collection talking about heartbreak, love, and coming back to being true to yourself. I had a big rant about this on my Instagram stories. I found it very unrelatable and very unoriginal. I know I just had a chat before about how sometimes things don't have to be original to enjoy them, but I think it's a different case for poetry. The same ideas, understandably, will crop up because there's been millennia of poetry and poets writing about things like heartbreak and love. But the main issue I had with this is that, I don't know how many times I have to say it, but having a blank page with 1 or 2 words on it does not make it a poem. The only time something like that truly works for me personally is if the words are super original or the metaphor is something I haven't heard before. And I wouldn't have thought that was too hard considering I haven't read heaps and heaps of poetry. But this just gave me major Rupi Kaur vibes. So if you like that poetry, you might like it. Personally, I didn't. So that's probably how that feeling is reflected in this poetry book. The next book I read is Wonderstruck by Mr. Selznick. I can never remember his first name, my apologies. And this is a beautiful middle grade contemporary novel who follows 2 people. Her story is told in picture form, and there is a young boy, and his story is what's written about. And the plot itself is spiral, so you've got your 2 separate ones and eventually they come together into one. I think that's the proper terminology. And it was just a beautiful story talking about death with a capital D people, as well as the hardships that they have to go through. And it really made me think a lot more about how I should probably learn some sign language, just because it's a way of communicating with people. It's also just going completely off kilter here. Zombie apocalypse, right? You can't talk to each other. Why don't you sign to each other? Silent communication. It would be a very useful skill. But either way, I absolutely adored this. It was a 5 out of 5 stars for me, and it looks massive, but I think I finished it in only 2.5 hours because so much of it is picture. I also finally finished Tower of Dawn. I say finally finished, more like I finally picked it up. This is book 6 in the Throne of Glass series, and I actually hadn't enjoyed the direction the series was going. I read the last book and didn't like it that much. It was my least favourite, so I was really scared to pick this one up, but I figured I'm so close to the end, I want to finish it and see how it all, culminates. And I have to say, this is my second favourite book in the series, and I gave it 5 stars. Behind Throne of Glass, that's my favourite one. This one follows Carl, and I can't say too much without giving away spoilers, but essentially he is off trying to find support for his, and alongside him is his, I don't know what you call it, left-hand side, his good friend and other leader, Nezarin, and it follows both of their perspectives as they go through this mysterious land, and there's a really nice romance subplot in this one, and I have to say I appreciate that Carl, will that spoil it? I don't think it will spoil it, how he isn't one of those characters where he only sees one girl and then falls in love for the rest of his life. It's a bit more realistic in that, there's multiple people throughout his lifetime. This far in the series, you've seen his whole, progression through life. And I just genuinely forgot how much I liked him as a character. My classic of the month, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. This is a collection of 12 short stories in this one. And I learned so much reading this in terms of who Sherlock Holmes is. He is so much more eccentric than I thought he was. He is a crazy fun character. I also learned that these are short stories, like I just mentioned. I always thought that this was like one big mystery, but no, they're short stories. I've said that like 3 times now, Bethany. What else can you tell me? Well, I can tell you that they used to be published in a magazine, and that's what made the magazine famous, to the point where Doyle was like, yo, guys, you owe me more money, and he got some more money, and his fame rose. And I really enjoyed this, but I'm going to give it 4 stars. I think it's just because of the times we live in now. Like, these stories are really designed to be read one at a time, and in a collection like this, and the type of reader I am, I wanted to read through the whole book, which I did, which meant as a result that each small story, which is about 30 pages long, had a very similar structure to it. You're introduced to Sherlock, to the point where some lines are like exactly the same between stories. You're given the mystery. Sherlock and Holmes goes to solve it. Sherlock solves it. And that's repeated. So if you are going to read this, I definitely think give yourself time to read it one story at a time. Next up, because of this, I decided that I was not interested in the Shadowhunter world anymore. I had book 1, I read it, it was okay. Book 2, I read it and went downhill. Book 3, 2 stars. I did not like it. I just found Clary annoying. I found the romance subplot way too extrapolated. I think that the Valentine thing was just overdone. It wasn't for me, I'm sorry. I think if I had read this 10 years ago when I was like 14, wait, am I 24 yet? I'm 24 soon. 9 years ago when I was 14, 15, that coming into teenage years, I would have loved it. But it's just, I think, too juvenile in writing style for me to enjoy now. I just wasn't intrigued enough, I'm sorry. Another book, The Toll. This is the 3rd book in the Scythe trilogy. Oh, I didn't go through I'm pretty sure everyone knows about the Mortal Instruments by now, so I didn't go through those. Oh, book's falling over. And my hair is everywhere. Good job this is my own copy, because ooh. Sci-fi futuristic trilogy. The world, okay? The world is perfect. One AI kind of god called the Thunderhead rules. And at this time in the future, everyone can live forever. So that's where the Scythes come in. So the Scythes are people who are allowed to kill people. It's not classified as murder, it's classified as gleaning. Book 3 was, I'll be honest, a bit of a disappointment for me. I gave it 3.5 stars, which isn't the worst, but I gave the first 2 books 5 stars. I just wanted some more thrill from this one. It took me too long to get into. It took me 300 pages to fully feel like I knew what was going on. There's a lot of different perspectives coming from each chapter, and although that was fun once I got used to it, at the beginning it completely threw me off. But then once I got to the last half of the book, I really loved it. So that's why it's a 3.5 stars. And the 10th book is book 3 in the Wayward Children series, and it is Beneath the Sugar Sky. I wasn't very happy with the second book. You saw my last wrap up, and I think there's a reading vlog out there. I'll link them if you're interested. But essentially the second book wasn't the story I wanted from that character's world viewpoint, but this one I think is my favourite one of the series so far. This series, in case you're not aware, follows children who have come from doorways from other realms, and you follow the children as they go through their little adventures. Each book is from a different perspective. Book 2 arguably could be a prequel to book 1 in my opinion, but anyway, I need to move on from that. We're on to book 3. This one, like I said, was brilliant. It is from the perspective of a girl who was a mermaid in her world, but the plot itself revolves around Rinny. Rinny is a daughter of a character whom we have previously seen in the series, and she is trying to find her mum because something happened to her mum which has caused her to slowly disappear. I don't think I spoiled anything. The reason why I like this one so much is purely because of how treasure hunty it felt. They were finding someone, they were going from place to place. You saw like 3 worlds. There were allusions to characters who we had already met, and I just loved how interwoven and connected all the stories were. So this was a solid one for me. After book 2, admittedly, I was thinking of not continuing, but I think I'll go on to book 4 now. So that's it from me. Those are the 10 books I have most recently read, and I hope you enjoyed all my quick little reviews. As always, I write my reviews too in Goodreads, and there is a link down below for that if you are interested. As well as down below, if you don't mind, if you have the time and energy, please consider leaving a cheeky like and subscribe, and enjoy all the places you go on your own reading journeys. I'll see you next time. Bye.